Give me a few days to heal, okay? Then we'll start again on the left hand and...
Feed me.
I beg your pardon?
Feed me.
Tui, you talked! You opened your trap, you thing, and you said...
Feed me, Carbon! Feed me now!
What's up, people? Welcome to another episode of Rewind. It's 80s Day again, so we're talking about the 1986 musical horror comedy Little Shop of Horrors. This is a movie that features a giant man-eating plant, a demented dentist, and of course, the one and only Rick Moranis. Everybody loves Rick Moranis. This insanely fun movie was based on both the long-running stage hit and the original 1960 Roger Corman film. Little Shop of Horrors was directed by Frank Oz, who was the voice and puppeteer for many of the Muppets and of course Yoda. Everybody loves Yoda. Now, there are two versions of this movie, the theatrical cut and the director's cut. I'll be discussing both, so just a heads up, there will be spoilers. The main character in Little Shop of Horrors is Seymour Krelborn. Seymour is a meek, nerdy florist who's a bit of a mess, but it's hard not to feel bad for this guy even when he makes some really bad decisions, like feeding body parts to a cackling plant. I still found myself rooting for him, but we'll get to that in a moment. Seymour works at a struggling flower shop in Skid Row. The shop owner, Mr. Mushnick, keeps him busy. He lets him stay in the basement, and he treats him like dirt. Seymour is hopelessly in love with Audrey, who also works at the flower shop. She was played by Ellen Greene, who originated the role in the off-Broadway and London stage productions of Little Shop of Horrors. Audrey's a fun, quirky character. She's also surprisingly optimistic and hopeful, which says a lot considering the fact that she's in a relationship with an abusive, over-the-top, psychotic dentist who can inexplicably fly his motorcycle through the air. This dude absolutely steals the show whenever he's on screen.
You'll be a dentist. You have a talent for causing things. Son, be a dentist.
This review wouldn't be complete if I didn't acknowledge all of the memorable music from Howard Ashman and Alan Menken. The music is a cool mashup of 1960s rock, swing, and doo-wop. There's even a traditional Greek chorus who serve as our narrators. The story kicks into gear with Seymour becoming an MVP on Skid Row. How does this happen? Well, thanks to a mysterious Venus flytrap that he's discovered, which he names Audrey too.
Seymour, where did you get such a weird plant?
Well, you remember that total eclipse of the sun about a week ago?
Everyone who lives on Skid Row desperately wants out of Skid Row. So when it seems like Seymour's ticket out of this downtrodden life is a charismatic plant who can hold a tune, we as an audience just happily go along with it. Especially early on before the whole feeding of body parts thing comes into play. You know what? Let's just skip ahead to that stuff. So, the true conflict and moral dilemma in this movie is the fact that Seymour is compelled to keep supplying fresh blood to the plant. Basically, the more blood he supplies, the more fame and success he seems to achieve, and the larger the plant gets. Seymour is also under the impression that Audrey will only give him a chance if he's rich and famous. Yep, this dude has zero confidence in himself. In any case, we're treading in some murky waters here. Seymour has basically made a deal with the devil. And we all know how well those types of deals tend to work out. Sure enough, Seymour learns the plant is from outer space, and it's hell-bent on world domination. Seymour steps up to the plate, he becomes the hero, and destroys the plant. And with that, we got our happy ending. Well, mostly happy ending. However, this cheery ending where the plant is destroyed is where the theatrical cut and the director's cut completely diverge. The director's cut is pretty much exactly the same except for one huge difference, the ending. In the director's cut, we're given a darker, much more bleak outlook for the human race. Plus, our two leads are eaten by Audrey too. Then the plant goes on to take over the entire world. The killer plant was impressive as hell in the theatrical version, so seeing enormous versions of the plant devouring the city is a thing of beauty. And best of all, it was all created with old school practical effects. So which version is better? Well, I grew up with the theatrical cut, and for years, that's the only version of the movie I knew. Although I did have my suspicions thanks to trading cards I had as a kid, which actually featured bits and pieces of deleted scenes from the movie, especially scenes from the alternate ending. So, why are there two completely different endings to this movie? Well, you can thank an 80s test audience and the studio for that one. According to the director Frank Oz, the original dark ending was scrapped due to the audience falling in love with the two leads, Rick Moranis and Ellen Greene. The test audience cared so much about Seymour and Audrey that the thought of them being devoured was just way too much of a downer. In the stage play, which features the unhappy ending, the actors get to come out and bow at the end, so the audience can accept the leads dying because there they are, they see them again and everything's alright. Whether you agree with this idea or not, this is how it went back then, and this is the story behind why the movie's conclusion was changed so drastically. Of course, the studio decided to play it safe, they sided with the test audience, so they reshot the ending. It paid off, the movie was a success anyway. Unfortunately, the scrapped ending did mean that the entire original Godzilla-inspired world conquest ending was 100% scrapped, and all of the hard work that was put into that epic finale seemingly went to waste. That is until 2012, when we were lucky enough to get a Blu-ray release that featured both versions of the movie. For me, I have a lot of nostalgia attached to the theatrical cut. Even though the happy ending does feel a bit tacked on knowing all the behind-the-scenes drama, I still love it. However, the director's cut does arguably make more sense. During the course of the movie, Seymour makes bad decisions. In the theatrical cut, he plays hero at the last second and gets to live happily ever after. But a stronger lesson is that when you consciously make bad decisions, you may have to pay a price for it at some point. This idea is definitely lost in the happy ending, but it's amped up to 1,000 in the director's cut, and it's highlighted by the inclusion of an additional song which accompanies the montage. It's called Don't Feed the Plants, and it's all right there in the lyrics. They may offer you fortune and fame, love and money, and instant acclaim, but whatever they offer you, don't feed the plants. The director's cut targets and punishes Seymour for his wrongdoing, then goes after the rest of the human race. We're all capable of greed and reckless behavior, not to mention mindless consumerism. The director's cut even features an excellent montage that lays it all out. We see hordes of people swamping the stores to buy smaller versions of the very plants that will lead to their own demise. Tell me this scene doesn't look eerily similar to Black Friday images. The director's cut does leave you thinking a lot more than the theatrical cut does. The movie's also a great time capsule that features a very cool assortment of 80s legends in small but memorable roles. Aside from Steve Martin, we also got John Candy, Christopher Guest, James Belushi, and Bill Murray, who really stood out as a lunatic who got off on pain.
Oh, yes! Yes!
Lastly, was The Plant. Audrey 2 was a true achievement in special effects. As an adult, I appreciate it even more. Audrey 2 was brought to life via massive puppets designed by Lyle Conway. In its largest form, The Plant required 60 puppeteers, but it was worth it. There isn't a single moment in this movie where the creature doesn't look great. The Plant was voiced very memorably by Levi Stubbs from the Four Tops. Stubbs gave the Plant so much life and personality, but he's also surprisingly manipulative and menacing as well. In closing, I do love both versions, just in different ways and for different reasons. I'll admit, the theatrical cut is tied to my nostalgia, but I can also equally appreciate the director's cut for fulfilling the director's original vision and offering us more insight into the human condition. And honestly, the sight of giant plants wreaking havoc is fun as hell. A kick-ass callback to B-movie monster madness. Little Shop of Horrors is a non-stop, entertaining, fun movie. Even though most of it is tongue-in-cheek, it can get surprisingly dark at times, just something to keep in mind. The casting is strong, the love story between Seymour and Audrey is pretty prominent, which is fine because the two leads do have solid chemistry, plus Rick Moranis is so likable, it's hard not to root for him no matter how grim things get. It's an easy movie for me to recommend. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. I give both versions 5 out of 5 baby Audrey 2s. That's it for me. Remember, you can do your part too. Don't feed the plants. Later.